A stranger I met at a gas station texted me one thing. This story is from when I was a senior in high school. Back then, I was a rebellious teenager, but only when it came to my family. I wasn't a bad kid by any means, just a punk when it came to them. I had a loving family, but I was that kid who was too cool to spend time with them. They always expected me to entertain my little brother, Jake, who was only 10 years old at the time. I was 8 years older than him, so with that age difference, we may as well have been different species. Whenever we took trips, my family usually stayed somewhere on or near the ocean. We lived about 5 hours from the coast, so it was an easy drive. That year, they decided to take a trip to Maine. Don't get me wrong, it was beautiful. As an adult, I'd love to go back. But as an 18-year-old, I thought it was the worst trip imaginable. Before I continue, I just want to acknowledge how terrible I was back then. Even writing this now, I can't believe how much of a little punk I was. We arrived at the house, and it was incredible. It looked like something out of a Stephen King novel, which was fitting, considering we were in Maine. It was a massive white house with green shutters, deep in the woods. My dad even joked, "This is how most horror movies start, isn't it?" Probably not the best thing to say in front of a 10-year-old, but Jake didn't care. He was just as mesmerized as I was. Inside, the house felt like a maze. The back center had a huge living room with a clear view of the forest. The rest of the house had hallways that intersected in ways that didn't make sense. It felt like something you'd design in The Sims, not real life. But the weirdest part wasn't the layout. It was that the house connected to another, smaller house, the owner's house. His name was Hugh. He was strange. Tall, wearing a sweat-stained bucket hat, with yellow teeth, but it wasn't his appearance that stood out. It was his personality. He was loud, goofy, and eccentric. He welcomed us warmly and kept talking about how kind people in Maine were. My family nodded politely while he spoke. He told us he'd be right next door if we needed anything, but otherwise, we wouldn't see or hear from him. We weren't exactly thrilled that a stranger was basically living in the same house as us, but there wasn't much we could do. So we tried to make the best of it. Well, my family did. I didn't. The next morning, my parents wanted to go on a hike. I refused. After some arguing, they let me stay behind while they went out. The real reason I stayed? I had just started dating a girl named Danny, and I wanted to talk to her. No service on the hike meant no texting, so I chose my phone over my family. While texting her, I told her about the house and its weird layout. When I mentioned the adjoining house, she didn't believe me. So I decided to prove it. At the end of one hallway was a door, the one leading to Hugh's side. I started recording a video, telling her what was behind it. I assumed it would be locked. It wasn't. That alone freaked me out. The door to his house was right next to my bedroom. Still, I opened it. I walked into Hugh's house while on FaceTime with Danny. It looked normal, just a couch, a TV, nothing unusual. Then I heard a door shut somewhere inside. I panicked and ran back to our side. A few minutes later, Hugh knocked on our door. Still cheerful, still smiling. He asked why I was recording inside his house. I tried to lie, but he didn't believe me. He told me he had cameras and saw everything. So I told the truth. He laughed it off and made a weird comment about how people in Maine don't lock their doors. I laughed awkwardly and shut the door. Then I locked it. And just to be safe, I dragged a heavy wooden chair over and wedged it against the door. Later, my family came back. I told them what happened, but they were more upset that I went into Hugh's house. They weren't wrong, but I still argued. Soon after, they went out for dinner and left me alone. Not long after sunset, the house went completely dark. No outside light. Just pitch black. A couple of hours later, I was sitting on the couch texting Danny when I heard a loud crash. It came from the hallway. From the door. The one I had barricaded. I froze. Then I slowly crept toward the hallway. It was too dark to see, so I flipped on the light. The chair was knocked over. and next to it was a backpack. Not mine. I ran straight to the screen porch. I locked the door behind me and crouched under a table, shaking. I had left my phone inside. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Calm. Walking. Not rushing. Not panicked. Just walking. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually I saw headlights, my dad's van pulling in. I ran out and told them to stay in the car. Then Hugh appeared. And I nearly collapsed. He pulled my dad aside, spoke to him privately. Hugh looked completely different now, no smile, no joking. Just fear. My dad came back and told us to get in the van immediately. We drove to a grocery store parking lot down the road. Minutes later, police cars sped past us. That's when my dad told us everything. Hugh had heard the crash too. His cameras were triggered. At first, he thought it was me again. But when he checked, he saw something else. After I turned on the hallway light, his camera caught a tall, bald man stepping out of my bedroom. A man he knew wasn't me. Or my dad. The man grabbed the backpack and went back into the room. Hugh immediately went outside and kept watch from a distance, afraid that confronting the intruder might put me in danger. When my family returned, he told my dad everything. Police later chased the man into the woods. They never caught him. They never figured out how he got inside. We stayed at a hotel that night and went home the next day. I've always told myself maybe it was just a homeless guy looking for shelter. But deep down, I don't believe that. Sometimes the scariest things aren't the ones you see. They're the ones hiding in plain sight. Every year, my family goes on a big vacation together. We stay at my aunt and uncle's house right on the ocean in West Palm Beach. Their son, Will, is the same age as me, and we've always been close. My other aunt and uncle come too, along with their kids, including my cousin Teresa, who's basically my best friend. Growing up, people always thought Teresa and I were twins. Same age, same last name, and we kind of looked alike. We used to lean into it and tell strangers we were twins just for fun. As we got older, those vacations turned into something else. During the day, we'd hang out with the family on the beach. But at night, Will would take us out, bars, clubs, whatever was going on. Being the local, he knew all the best spots. On one trip a few years ago, something happened that still bothers me to this day. Teresa and Will don't think it was a big deal. They think it was just something weird, maybe even a coincidence. I'm not so sure. The trip started like any other. Sun, beach, drinks, the usual. Now, Will had a habit of drinking a little too much. Maybe not accidentally. He liked to party. Teresa and I had gotten pretty good at recognizing when he hit his limit. And on this particular night, he definitely hit it. We were at a bar when Will started getting loud, running his mouth, acting like he owned the place because he was a local. That didn't go over well. Eventually, he got thrown out. Not politely. The bouncer physically dragged him outside. He wasn't hurt, just embarrassed and very drunk. I told Teresa to keep an eye on him while I tried to get us a ride home. While I was on my phone, Will kept calling me a buzzkill. That's how I knew it was definitely time to leave. I managed to get us a ride, and while we were waiting, I called my boyfriend just to tell him about the chaos. We laughed about it, and I hung up. That's when Teresa came running over, panicking. She said she looked away for just a second, and Will was gone. We started searching the streets, calling his name. I tried calling his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Typical. After a few minutes, Teresa shouted that she saw him. He was walking, barely in a straight line, toward a wooded area. I don't even know what to call it. Forest, swamp, it was Florida, so it was kind of both. Mud, thick brush, trees everywhere. Before we could stop him, he disappeared into it. Without thinking, we ran in after him. It didn't take long to catch up. He was too drunk to move fast. Using our phone flashlights, we could see how gross the ground was, mud everywhere, soaking into our shoes. We were about to drag him out when suddenly, Will told us to be quiet. At first, we were ready to snap at him. But then we saw his face. He wasn't joking anymore. He looked scared. Then we heard it. Screaming. Not normal screaming. Not someone yelling for fun. This was different. Raw. Desperate. Echoing through the trees. We froze. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. We couldn't tell where it was coming from, but it was close enough to feel real. Then, just like that, it stopped. We didn't move. Not for a long time. At least 15 minutes, maybe more. Then we ran. We sprinted out of the swamp as fast as we could, back to the street, back to safety. We got our ride and went home. None of us said much. We sobered up real fast. Later that night, we tried to make sense of it. We came up with explanations, but none of them felt right. Teresa suggested something the next morning. She wanted to go back. I didn't want to. But somehow, they convinced me. Teresa had an incredible sense of direction. She led us straight back to the exact spot where we had been the night before. You could still see the marks in the dirt where we had crouched. We talked about where the sound might have come from and agreed on a general direction. Then we started walking. It wasn't a path. We were pushing through brush, stepping over mud, forcing our way deeper in. A few minutes later, Teresa stopped and gasped. Caught on a tree branch was a torn sleeve from a denim jacket. Just the sleeve. Below it, in the mud, were footprints. A lot of them. Messy. Overlapping. Like people had been struggling. I wanted to leave right then. But Teresa kept going. Not far ahead, we found the rest of the jacket lying on the ground. More footprints surrounded it. All clustered together. Again, like something had happened there. Then we saw it. A single set of footprints leading away. Straight into thicker brush. And then, gone. That was enough for me. I told them I didn't feel safe and wanted to go back. They agreed, reluctantly. Back at the house, we talked about what to do. I thought we should call the police. I was convinced we had stumbled onto something serious. But Will and Teresa weren't convinced. They said it could have been anything, a prank, a coincidence, something unrelated to what we heard. Then Will said something that stuck with us. If we called the police, we'd be the only ones connected to it. 3 young adults, in a swamp, late at night, after drinking. Would anyone believe our story? At the time, that scared us enough to stay quiet. So we did nothing. It's been years now. And I still think about that night. About those screams. About that jacket. About what we might have witnessed. If I could go back, I would have called the police. Immediately. Because whatever made that sound was real. And I'll never forget it. This last story happened to my girlfriend and me last summer. It was the first time we were traveling alone together as a couple, and we were excited. She had joined me once on a family trip before, but this felt different. This felt like a real step forward. The trip definitely became memorable. Just not for the right reasons. For privacy, I'll call my girlfriend Vanessa. One thing you should know about her, she always says I'm too nice to people. Not just polite, but overly friendly. The kind of person who treats strangers like they're already close friends. I've always seen that as a good thing. She calls it a weakness. And honestly, after this trip, I started to understand why. We were about 20 minutes away from Ocean City when I pulled into a gas station to fill up and grab a couple of drinks. That's where I met him. Henry. We bumped into each other near the counter, and he immediately started apologizing. I told him it was no big deal. We started talking while waiting in line. He was charismatic. Friendly. Confident. The kind of guy who makes eye contact and mirrors your energy perfectly. We talked for a couple of minutes, and I mentioned we were heading to Ocean City. His face lit up. He said he and his girlfriend were heading there too. I got excited, just a random connection on the road. When he asked where we were staying, I told him the name of our condo. He smiled and said he thought they were staying right nearby. Looking back, that should have been the first red flag. But at the time, it just felt like a cool coincidence. We exchanged numbers, did one of those quick bro hugs, and went our separate ways. When I got back to the car, Vanessa knew instantly. I had made a new friend. I told her what happened, and she just rolled her eyes. We arrived at the condo later that day. It was perfect, 5th floor, balcony view overlooking the ocean. That night was quiet. Peaceful. Nothing felt off. The next morning, we went down to the beach early. Around 7 a.m., just enjoying coffee and the ocean. A few hours later, I heard someone shout my name. I turned around. Henry. He walked up with a woman beside him. He introduced her as Sarah. And immediately, something felt off. Not with him. With her. She barely spoke. She wore oversized sunglasses, a wide hat, long sleeves, completely covered despite being at the beach. And she looked miserable. Henry asked if they could join us. Of course, I said yes. They didn't bring anything with them. No chairs, no towels, nothing. He just sat in the sand. Sarah stood there awkwardly until I offered her my chair. She hesitated, then accepted. Henry told us they were staying in the building right next to ours. Another coincidence. Another red flag I ignored. We hung out for about an hour before heading back to the room. Before leaving, Henry kept pushing for us to go out that night. I told him I'd let him know. Back in the room, Vanessa didn't hold back. She said Henry felt fake. Too rehearsed. Too perfect. And Sarah? She said Sarah gave her the worst feeling out of anyone she'd ever met. She also pointed out something I hadn't even considered. Why would someone come to a beach town, hate the sun, and still go to the beach with no gear? I told her she was probably right. And I promised I wouldn't contact him again. That night, I was out on the balcony smoking. I looked down toward the beach. And I swear, I saw Sarah. Walking alone. Same outfit. Same bag. Just moving slowly along the shoreline. I couldn't be 100% sure, but it looked like her. Later, before going to bed, I went to lock the door. That's when I heard something. Voices. Right outside. Not clear. Just low, quiet talking. Then the door handle moved. Like someone was trying to open it. I didn't panic. I just said calmly, "Wrong room." The handle stopped. Then I heard footsteps quickly walking away. I assumed it was just someone who got the wrong door. It happens. At least. That's what I told myself. The next day, they showed up again. Henry and Sarah. Same clothes. Same energy. Same uncomfortable feeling. We didn't stay long. Vanessa had had enough. I told Henry we were going back and might go out later. He seemed overly excited about that. Later, while getting ready for dinner, I looked down from the balcony. Sarah was standing near the bottom of our building, facing the ocean. Alone. Then Henry appeared, from inside our building. Not the one next door. Ours. He walked up to her, gesturing aggressively. Then stormed off. She followed. Something wasn't right. Even I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, while we were out at dinner, Henry kept calling me. I ignored every call. Eventually, I texted him saying we were heading back and going to bed. Immediately, he called again. I ignored it. Then he sent a text. "Let's meet for a drink before you get back." "It's too early." I declined again. Then he sent one more message. "Don't go to your room yet." We both stopped walking. Right there in the parking lot. Vanessa looked at me and said, "Something's wrong." We got to the door. It was slightly open. I know for a fact. I locked it. Vanessa stayed in the hallway while I slowly pushed the door open. At first, everything looked normal. Then I noticed the balcony door was open. No one was outside. Then I checked the bedroom. And my stomach dropped. Our suitcases had been torn apart. Clothes everywhere. Drawers open. Things moved. But only a few things were missing. My sneakers. Her swimsuit. And a photo of us. We called the police immediately. We told them about Henry and Sarah. But those names? Fake. No one by that name was staying in the building next door. Or ours. When they tried to track the number, it was already disconnected. The police told us it happens sometimes. People target tourists. Gain their trust. Figure out where they're staying. Then break in. We were just unlucky. But I don't think it was just a random robbery. Because they didn't just take valuables. They took things that felt personal. And to this day, somewhere out there, Henry and Sarah are still doing this. And now, I'm a lot more careful about who I trust.